This podcast is sponsored by AXA Farm Insurance. AXA offers tailored cover to fit your unique needs, whether it's public liability or protection for your family home, outbuildings or farm vehicles. Based in Athlone, the AXA Farm team of agri-specialists and regional managers work together to ensure you receive the seamless support you need. Switching to AXA is easy thanks to an innovative online service that enables you to quickly and easily find the best cover for your needs. For more information, head to AXA.ie. AXA Insurance DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Farming Week, the podcast brought to you by Agriland and AXA, keeping you up to date with all the latest in Irish agriculture. I'm Charles O'Donnell and I'm joined today by O'Brien and Francess McDonnell. We have a lot to cover this week, so we'll shortly get stuck into it. But first, this is our first Farming Week podcast since the AXA National Dairy Show, which took place on Friday and Saturday of last week. On the second day, Judge Cord Horman from Germany named the overall winner, with Hallo Octane Twizzle exhibited by Hallo Holsteins Limited being chosen as the supreme champion of the AXA National Dairy Show. Agriland has a wealth of coverage on this year's show, so you can check out all of it on our website and app. Now, we'll start with some positive news for farmers this week, and that's that advance payments under the Basic Income Support for Sustainability and the Complementary Redistributive Support for Sustainability, the BISS and CRIS in other words, will be making their way to farmers' bank accounts from this week. Aisling, you have the details on this.
Yes, Charles, perhaps one of the most important payments for farmers of the year. We've been told by Minister for Agriculture Martin Hayden that the advance payments under BISS and CRIS will be worth around €511 million to almost 111,000 farmers. Now, combined with the ANC, of course, the Areas of Natural Constraints scheme payments that were issued last month, it brings to over €694 million the value of area-based payments in the past month. Now, Minister Hayden said given the importance of scheme payments to farmers, he wanted to ensure that these payments continue to issue in the most effective way possible so that these vital supports are delivered to farmers in a timely manner. And we learned that 93.87% of applicants have been paid, which the Minister said is in line with the Department's commitment under the Farmers' Charter to pay 90% of eligible applications. Now, the BISS and CRIS advance payments, as you said, are expected to commence at a rate of 70%, with those payments to be visible in farmers' bank accounts in the coming days. And the Department will continue to process, we're being told, as a matter of urgency, all remaining cases for payment as they meet the scheme criteria. And the Minister has urged any farmers with outstanding requests for documents from the Department to return those as soon as possible to allow the payments to issue. And payments under the 2025 ANC scheme, which commenced last month, are also continuing as more cases are cleared for payment. And we were told by the Department that 2025 payments under the ECO scheme are set to begin from next week. So farmers wishing to contact the Department about their BISS or ANC payments can contact the Direct Payments Help Desk, and they can also submit any queries that they have through the Ag Food portal as well. And I suppose looking at BISS and CRIS, Charles, and that county by county breakdown we published on Agriland this week, as you would expect, there is a considerable variation between the counties, and we see just under €3 million being paid out in Dublin to over 60.5 million in Cork. So a huge variation. And if you want to check out what each county got, you can log on to our website or app.
Moving on now, and there's been a lot of talk in the last week about milk prices on both ends of the supply chain. Let's start with milk prices paid to farmers by processors. What's the latest on that front, Aisling?
Yes, Charles. So as we have been discussing here on the podcast, there has been a downward trend in recent months when it comes to milk price, and that looks set to continue as we got the first milk price announcements from processors for September. So last Friday, Lakeland Dairies confirmed a price of 44.25 cent a litre for September milk in the Republic of Ireland, and that's inclusive of a 0.5 cent a litre sustainability incentive payment. Now that marks a reduction of 3 cents a litre on the price paid by the processor in August. In the north, the price paid will be 35.8 pence per litre for milk supplied in September. That's also inclusive of that sustainability incentive payment, and that represents a reduction of 2.5 pence per litre on the price paid in August. And in a statement, Lakeland said that the markets continue to experience pressure due to sustained strong global supply, particularly from major dairy exporting regions. And it added that that's driving a decline in commodity prices for butter and all milk products, and that's contributing to a significant downward momentum on farm gate price. Kerry Dairy Ireland has also revealed its milk price for supplies in September, and it has also reduced its offering by 3 cents a litre. The processor said its milk price for September is 44.53 cents per litre, including VAT. That's down from 47.53 cents per litre for August milk. Now, that price is inclusive of quality and sustainability bonuses, Kerry Dairy Ireland said. Now, it also released a statement and it said that dairy markets remain oversupplied and sentiment in markets is very weak. And it said that continued strong milk supplies across key producers are exerting downward pressure on commodity prices, and market stabilisation and recovery will be dependent on demand picking up at lower prices to absorb surplus supply. So similar sentiments from both Lakeland and Kerry Dairy Ireland there. And as we get more milk price announcements from processors, we'll be bringing it to you on Agriland, so stay tuned.
And on the other side of the supply chain, Aisling, the retail end, there was a lot of coverage across all media this week on retailers deciding to reduce the price of milk on their shelves in their stores. So how did this story develop?
Yes, Charles, the processors are not the only ones announcing price cuts when it comes to milk this week. As you said, several retailers confirmed reductions in the cost of milk in their stores. Aldi, Lidl, Tesco Ireland and SuperValu all announced a drop in their own label milk prices, and understandably that's led to concern from farm organisations. The Irish Creamery Milk Suppliers Association said it was extremely notable that the only people that will see their margins affected by cuts to milk price by retailers are dairy farmers. And ICMSA President Dennis Drennan said that when the markets are going up, every element of the supply chain makes their margins. But when the markets are going down, as they are at present, the only element in the dairy supply chain that loses financially are the dairy farmers. And he said the economic and compulsory environmental costs to produce a litre of milk are the same, but the price that the farmer receives has fallen over the past 2 months. And he said that there's no other sector that can and does experience this type of fall in incomes, and that's exactly why the income volatility measure that they called for in Budget 2026 should have been adopted according to the ICMSA. Now, the Irish Farmers Association warned that any potential retailer price war could finish year-round production of milk, and the IFA President Francie Gorman said while consumers, of course, will be glad to see cuts in retail milk prices, they should be aware of the potential consequence of retail price wars. And he noted that Ireland's fresh milk is provided by a small cohort of farmers who have signed a contract to produce milk every day of the year. And he said these farmers receive a modest premium over the price for manufacturing milk to cover the higher production costs and, of course, the commitment required of them to produce liquid milk year round. And Francie Gorman did note as well that the number of producers of liquid milk has fallen by 34% in the past decade and now stands at around 1,200 suppliers. And the IFA's Liquid Milk Committee Chair Henry Dunn said that there is a real danger now that fresh milk producers will cease to sign year-round contracts and that they might choose instead to send their milk for manufacturing and then will be free to dry off their cows over the winter. Now, Martin Hayden, the Minister, has been commenting on this as well this week. He was launching Bioeconomy Ireland Week 2025, and he said that Ireland has to identify opportunities for us to insulate ourselves against the volatility of world market prices. And he said there is a big challenge for dairy farmers to see such a change so quickly coming off the back of strong prices and a significant upside this year. And he said that dairy farmers know better than most the effect that the volatility of commodity markets can have on milk prices. And he said that they want to insulate farmers from that. And he said the way to do this is through innovation and value added pieces. And that's something to look at, he believes, in the medium and longer term for the dairy sector.
Switching sectors now, Aisling, to talk about beef. We've seen from the coverage from our beef specialist Breffney O'Brien that there has been about 120,000 less cattle slaughtered in the country in the year to date. Can you take us through those figures?
Yes, Charles. So as of last Sunday, October 12th, a total of 1,264,300 head of cattle had been slaughtered at Department of Agriculture approved factories. Just over 25,900 cattle were slaughtered in the week ending Sunday, October 12th. And the total beef kill last week was down 15,231 head on the same week of 2024. Now, supplies had been running ahead of last year for the first half of 2025, but have now fallen considerably behind. And the largest drop off, Breffney tells us, has been in the cow and steer kills, with the cow kill down by 60,500 head and the steer kill down by 47,500 head. Now, heifer supplies have been holding firmer, with kill numbers down by a less severe 6,200 head. Now, as Breffney has reported this week, it remains to be seen if kill numbers will recover significantly over the coming weeks, but he did say that most market forecasts would suggest that supplies will remain tight and below last year's levels until the end of the year at least.
And just before we move on from talking about farm outputs, we've had dairy, beef and now tillage, because since our last podcast, Dairygold and Tirlawn have both announced prices for the 2025 cereal harvest, and you can read more about those prices on our website and app. Now, we'll move on to our next item and revisit the topic of TB. New figures from the Department of Agriculture outline the key figures for the first 3 quarters of the year up to the end of September. And to take us through these figures, we're going to bring in Francess McDonnell. Francess, what can you tell us?
Well, no one needs any reminder of how big a problem TB is across the country at the moment, but DAFM's latest national TB statistics highlight the extent of that problem, Charles. According to DAFM, total expenditure on the TB programme soared to €79.4 million by the end of Q3 this year. The statistics also show a 21% increase in expenditure relating to the On-Farm Market Valuation Scheme, better known as OFMV. Now, that's the main compensation scheme available to farmers who experience a TB breakdown in their herd. Total OFMV costs increased to $40.8 million, according to the department, and DAFM has previously acknowledged that OFMV is the main contributor to the increase in TB programme expenditure over the last 3 years. Now, these latest figures from DAFM also show that the herd incidence rate by the end of Q3 2025 stood at 6.08%. That compared to 5.62% in September 2024. Overall, a total of 40,192 TB reactors were identified in the 12 months to the end of September 2025, and the number of herds restricted year on year also increased to 6,084 during the same time frame. It's worth remembering that while these latest figures show the increase in TB incidence, it does come against the backdrop of an increased budget allocation of €85 million for TB in 2026. According to the Minister for Agriculture, Food and the Marine, Martin Hayden, this will result in a total budget to fight TB of €157 million in 2026. And much of this money will, of course, go to financing his new TB action plan, which aims to tackle disease levels throughout a number of different ways. This includes additional targeting of animals, additional resources for the wildlife programme, and supporting on-farm biosecurity. But in the meantime, the Minister is now facing repeated calls to look at current TB compensation ceiling limits. The current ceiling limits were set back in February 2023, and farm organisations have warned that these are now obviously completely out of touch with the reality of what livestock now costs. The Irish Cattle and Sheep Farmers Association, ICSA, has warned that too many farmers are losing out because the market value of their stock exceeds current TB compensation ceilings, while the Irish Creamy Milk Suppliers Association, that's the ICMSA, has also highlighted that farmers are suffering a double blow. This is because they're not only taking the financial and psychological hit of TB itself, but then the ICMSA said they're being hopelessly underfunded in terms of purchasing replacement stock. According to the Irish Farmers Association, the IFA, these outdated ceilings should now be removed, and it believes the extra funding allocated to fight TB in Budget 2026 opens the door for Minister Martin Hayden to remove ceilings from the TB scheme entirely.
Thanks, Francis. We'll move on now and talk about a new report this week from the Environmental Protection Agency. This latest report is on water quality in the period of 2019 to 2024, including nitrates concentrations. So, Aisling, can you take us through the detail on this?
Yes, Charles. So this is the latest of the EPA's 3-yearly assessments of water quality in rivers, lakes, estuaries, coastal waters, canals and groundwater. And as you said, it covers a monitoring period of 2019 to 2024. Now, the assessments are made using data collected from 4,000 surface water bodies and 514 groundwater bodies. Now, the report found that nitrate concentrations are too high at 44% of river sites, with these being predominantly located in the east, southeast and south of the country. Despite this, the EPA said concentrations of nitrate have reduced at 39% of sites when compared with the previous assessment period, which was 2016 to 2021. Now, in the new report, it found that 6% of river sites have showed increasing nitrate concentrations and 55% were unchanged compared to the previous period. And the report says that 27% of river sites have high phosphorus concentrations. Nationally, 48% of river water bodies are in high or good ecological status, and just over 52% are unsatisfactory, moderate, poor or in bad ecological status. And the number of river water bodies in a satisfactory ecological status has actually declined by 2% compared to the previous assessment that was carried out. Now, the report says that excess nutrients from agriculture, urban wastewater and other human activities remain the biggest challenge to water quality. And the EPA welcomed the fact that there is evidence that nutrient levels are reducing in areas where actions are being targeted. But the agency also said that the scale and pace of implementation needs to be increased. In response to the report, the IFA President Francie Gorman said it's clear that all stakeholders, including farmers, need to redouble their efforts to protect water quality. And he said that the new data shows that all stakeholders have a job of work to do. And he said it's absolutely imperative that issues relating to urban wastewater are also dealt with as quickly as possible to make sure we really move the dial positively on water quality. Now, a coalition of 25 environmental groups known as SWAN, the Sustainable Water Network, urged the government to implement stronger, more urgent measures to restore the country's waterways. And it said rather than focusing on the nitrates derogation, the government needs to prioritise far stronger measures delivered with full urgency. And An Taisce, which is part of that group, said that a step change is needed in how we manage our waters to address this long-standing problem. And Green Party Senator Malcolm Noonan called on the government to ramp up investment in enforcement and to address systemic failings by Uisce Éireann and other state bodies to adequately protect our water courses. So some reaction there to that EPA report, Charles.
For our next item, we're going to revisit a story that appeared on the podcast last week, which is the sale of Rockwell Farm by the Spiritans Order. Well, we now know what the guide price is going to be for the property. Aisling, can you take us through the details from this week and just remind us of last week's story as well?
Yes, Charles. So one of the biggest farms in County Tipperary and maybe in the country has hit the market, Rockwell Farm, which is owned by the Spiritans religious order, as you said. It has a guide price of €21 million. And last week, as you discussed on the podcast, the Spiritans confirmed that it intended to sell Rockwell Farm. And the farm is one of a number of assets belonging to the religious order that may be sold to fund redress payments for victims of sexual abuse. So Rockwell Farm, it's located in the heart of the Golden Vale at Cashel, and it extends to some 805 acres. Now, it's currently a fully operational dairy farm and has modern farm buildings, we're told, that are ready for immediate use. The lands are all in grass. We're told they're well fenced and there's pathways throughout, giving easy access to all of the land. Now, the selling agents are Sherry Fitzgerald, and they confirmed this week that the lands could be purchased in lots by by private treaty as follows. So the first lot is called Carrageen. That's on approximately 109 hectares or 268 acres. That includes 2 houses and a farmyard. Then Rockwell Farm and Dogstown are lot 2. That's on approximately 537 acres or 217 hectares. And that would include the milking parlour, the full farmyard with modern facilities. And the guide price for that would be €15 million. And then, as I said, the entire lot, if you wanted to buy everything, Charles, it's €21 million you're going to have to ask the bank manager for. And that guide price would equate to just over €26,000 an acre. So it's quite a considerable farm sale if it reaches that amount, which I would imagine there will be fierce competition for a prime landholding such as Rockwell Farm. And the agents involved, Bobby Lloyd and Roseanne DeVere Hunt of Sherry Fitzgerald, have described this as a rare and once in a lifetime opportunity to purchase one of the country's best and biggest farm holdings. Bobby Lloyd said lands of this calibre, size and quality rarely come to the market, and he said the farm represents the pinnacle of Irish rural holdings, a once in a generation offering for those seeking scale, productivity and prestige. And Roseanne DeVere Hunt added that it is one of the finest farms and land banks to come onto the market in a long time. So no doubt, as I said, Charles, this will be a farm that's going to attract a lot of attention from buyers both here at home and overseas, and it's one that we'll be keeping a very close eye on here in Agriland.
We're going to revisit the issue of bird flu now. This week, Fota Wildlife Park in County Cork was forced to close until further notice due to a detection of the disease in the park. Aisling, can you take us through what we know here?
Yes, so Charles, we learned this week that samples were taken from captive birds that died at Fota Wildlife Park in County Cork, and they were taken to the Department of Agriculture's veterinary laboratory at Backweston in County Kildare, where they tested positive for bird flu. Now, the department said that the preliminary test results are positive for the H5N1 avian influenza virus, and further laboratory testing will be carried out, which will inform decisions on the management of this situation. Now, Fota Wildlife Park, it's located about 10 kilometres from Cork City, and it spreads over 100 acres, and annually it attracts some 430,000 visitors. So it is a huge tourist attraction in Cork. So obviously this closure until further notice is a big blow to everybody involved in the wildlife park. But of course, in a wider context, this is of concern, of course, to the wider farming community and people who have poultry, commercial poultry and backyard flocks as well. This year so far, there's been a total of 41 cases of bird flu in wild birds that have been detected to date. Of course, we know that the virus is circulating in the wild bird population, and Minister Martin Hayden emphasised the importance of biosecurity to protect poultry and captive birds. And he said the detection of the bird flu virus in captive birds at Fota Wildlife Park highlights the ongoing risk posed by the virus, and it is a reminder to everybody who keeps poultry, whether that is commercial holdings or those with some backyard hens, to stay aware, to take precautions and to prevent contact with or contamination from wild birds. So, you know, it is a cause for concern, Charles, and we know that in the north, the Department of Agriculture in Northern Ireland has set up a protection zone that has been put in place after bird flu was confirmed at a commercial poultry premises in County Tyrone. So look, it is a cause for concern, and it is something that the poultry industry and anybody who keeps any sort of poultry need to be very vigilant about at the moment.
Finally this week, Halloween is approaching, which means of course pumpkins. And because you normally don't see them other than at this time of year, you may never have asked yourself where they come from. Well, of course, pumpkins are farmed for this time of year, and one such farm is that of Joe Burns in County Cork. The farm, which also produces Joe's Farm Crisps, has had a bumper crop of 30,000 pumpkins this year. Here is farmer Joe Burns talking about the work of a pumpkin farmer and how he got started.
The first year we done the pumpkin picking was for a local school, just to see whether it will work. And kids came up from our local school and they absolutely loved it. So we kind of grew it from there. So this is our 8th season at the pumpkins. As I said, the first year was just a kind of an experiment. The minute Christmas passes, I'm planning straight away, sourcing our seeds. We're always trialling different varieties because different varieties suit different years. This year was a bumper year. I think it's just a bit of a heat wave. Really brought them on this year, but I changed varieties as well. So I'm not sure is it the varieties or the heat, but we've a bumper crop of them this year.
That was farmer Joe Burns talking about his pumpkin crop ahead of Halloween this year. And if you're interested in seeing more, you can check out the story on our website and app. But that unfortunately brings us to the end of today's podcast. Just very finally, the latest instalment of Agriland's Farm Safe, Farm Well series is now available and features farmer Padraig Moran, who has changed his approach to farm work as he gets older. It makes for very valuable advice, especially for older farmers, so we certainly recommend you check it out. But we'll leave it there. Please don't forget to rate, review and follow The Farming Week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love if you could spare some time to give us 5 stars and share The Farming Week with anyone you think might be interested. From Aisling, Francis and myself, all the best.
This podcast is sponsored by AXA Farm Insurance. AXA offers tailored cover to fit your unique needs, whether it's public liability or protection for your family home, outbuildings or farm vehicles. Based in Athlone, the AXA Farm team of agri-specialists and regional managers work together to ensure you receive the seamless support you need. Switching to AXA is easy thanks to an innovative online service that enables you to quickly and easily find the best cover for your needs. For more information, head to AXA.ie. AXA Insurance Stack is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.